I think I've always had some sort of anxiety, but I used to think that that was the drive that was gonna move me forward. As I was single and working, I took it as, oh, I'm type A. This is what's gonna make me feel productive. So I really didn't consider it as anxiety. And I think the first time I really took into account that it might be anxiety is when I had my daughter in 2021. Recently, I feel like the symptoms of anxiety has been exacerbated to the point that it's impacting my personal and professional life.
Welcome to Partners in Sublime, where we explore the teachings of depth psychology and Vedic philosophy to achieve the highest levels of personal growth and self-actualization. Join me as we tap into the unconscious for intuitive guidance and creative direction. I'm your host, Shagun Chopra. Let's begin.
Hi everyone. Before you begin listening to this week's session, I wanted to apologize for the poor sound quality I had in my recording with the guest. Sorry in advance and thank you for bearing with it. Let's begin.
Everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Partners in Sublime. Today we're going to talk about something that we all face in different degrees, which is anxiety. How to cope with it, how to live with it, how to use it to make sense of what's going on within us. And to break this topic down, I have with me my friend and fellow coach, Jenn. She is totally incredible, and I will let you hear from her in her own words what her journey into personal development so far has been like. So hi, Jenn. Welcome.
Hi, Shagun. Thanks for having me today. This is exciting to share space and talk shop. Yeah. Well, I am a mom of three and I have three sons. So I think that's where we all begin in personal development is becoming a mom. You know, it's like the realization of I'm not responsible just for myself, but I am responsible for others as well. I started off as a certified personal trainer and was working with women who wanted to lose weight. And it turns out that they had a lot of like emotional eating that was connected to their journey. And I thought, wow, there must be something else here. And it led down the path of becoming a life coach. And, you know, I did the Jungian life coaching back in 2020. It's been quite some time, and have been an avid learner, reader, and doing my own personal development because, of course, that's the most important thing, right? Is when we do our own work, we can help others. And so in all of that, as I was a young mom, and we were just talking about this before we hit record, is that about 20 years ago, I had my own journey with anxiety. So in my journey, you know, I think at the height of my anxiety, Shagun, it was like, I thought, you know, I can do this. I don't need help. I can do this. It got to a point where, you know, ignoring the anxiety was not helpful. And it turned into actual panic attacks. And so as that became part of my journey, I was like, well, I obviously need to go seek a little bit of assistance here. And so that's exactly what I did. I met with a doctor and prescribed medication. And interestingly enough, in that prescribing of medication, and I started taking the medication, I was like, wow, this is what normal feels like, you know, like the realization of, oh, I must have been having anxiety for quite some time and I didn't really realize it because it was my normal. And at any rate, then as I went back and met up with my doctor, I was like, well, now what do we do? You know, because I had this desire of like, well, do I really want to be on medication for, you know, the rest of my life? There must be something else here. And that's where I discovered other practices. Personal development was one of them. So I hired a coach, got into personal development, became a coach. Meditation, yoga, somatics, active imagination-based coaching practices were super helpful for me as well. And so, you know, rolled those all into a daily practice, and like, it really truly is a practice. If we keep up with the practice, it changes your life and your relationships.
Incredible that you got a taste of what non-anxiety state feels like through medication, but then you were determined to find it another way, and you did. and that became a gift you gave to yourself because for years you had been living and you didn't even know what it was like to live without anxiety.
I know. It's kind of mind blowing. But if you don't know, you don't know, right? And then when you know, it's like, oh, well, now how do I replicate this? And there are just so many ways that you can add into a daily practice, ways to do that. And so I have been medication free for probably 15 years, maybe longer. I don't remember when I went off of it, but I stay with my practice, and the practice is solid. So
Right. Yeah. So in your life currently, what's going on and where are you using this wisdom? It sounds like anxiety is a challenge that you conquered a while ago and it continued to. It's become a daily practice. But what's alive right now?
my life today is really sweet. There are obviously some big things, like I was transitioning with my son going off to get his PhD, so truly empty nesting, and that brings on some anxiety, and an opportunity to really kind of feel into the experience of being a mom, the blisses that come with motherhood, the challenges that come with motherhood. And so it's kind of a multi emotional, bittersweet experience. And in all of that, I've had the ability to, because of all those practices, really, I'm not going to say completely enjoy it, right? Because there's a lot of feels that you feel, but also it brings a lot of meaning. And like, I'm just so proud of my son, and to see him grow up and grow into a young man and go off and spread his wings. It's beautiful, and you show up every single day in motherhood, and there are those days that feel more overwhelming and those days that feel a little easier. Yeah, I imagine you can sense into that as well, since you're a mom.
Yeah, and my kids are so young, but I know other people who are empty nesting right now. And it can become a very emotional and exclusively sad experience. Or if engage with yourself and in a healthy way, you can hold that sadness along with join pride in watching a kid become an adult. So I do think that one of the benefits of Jungian work is to hold this tension of the opposite instead of fighting one thing or another. And it really lets you relish the moment versus if you had this one-sided perspective on like, this is how it should feel. Every time it should just feel good, or every time it should feel this way. Yeah, which is such an impossible standard. Like, we cannot meet it.
Yeah, I think there was a time in my life too where it was like I didn't have the full range of the emotions. It's like when I felt really sad, I felt really, really sad. And, when I felt overwhelmed, I felt really, really overwhelmed. But I didn't necessarily give myself that a range of joy either, because it's like, no, I have to get all of these things done. I think that's where the anxiety came in. It's like, no, I have to get all of these things done. Everything needs to be done before I can feel good. It was weird.
Exactly. No, I know that feeling. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're able to cherish this bittersweet moment with your son and use all the work you've done up till now to make meaning of it. So that's really beautiful. If you think it's a good time now, we can transition to our coaching session for the day, which is also focused on anxiety, where we can hear a snippet of the session for everyone listening. The session is with someone I call Kat. She was describing her experience with anxiety, and as you hear this, I hope that if you have anxiety, you can relate to what she's saying, because I certainly did. We're going to listen to it together, and then I will see you all on the other side.
Conversations on Partners in Sublime are for educational purposes only and do not constitute medical or psychological advice or treatment. Please consult a licensed professional for any mental health concerns. Hi, Kat. Welcome.
Thank you.
So, what's feeling alive in you today? What's on your mind?
I think I've always had some sort of anxiety, but I think I used to think that that was the drive that was gonna, move me forward. So I think as I was single and working, I took it as, oh, I'm type A. This is what's gonna, make me feel productive. So I really didn't consider it as anxiety. And I think the first time I really took into account that it might be anxiety is when I had my daughter in 2021. Since then, it's been like on and off, but recently I feel like the symptoms of anxiety has been exacerbated to the point that it's impacting my personal and professional life.
Yeah. So that anxiety that you thought was drive is now just a thing in itself. It's not propelling
Yes.
you towards some goals. It's just getting in your way.
Yes, it's getting in my way. It's there. It makes it harder for me to do my daily chores. It's on, like, it's there when I'm trying to be a mom, a wife, and I guess a working professional.
What would you say is the worst part of feeling this type of anxious?
So when I wake up, I feel this weight on my chest, and it makes me harder to breathe, harder to even like wake up. I feel like I'm grasping for air most of the time. And then as soon as I get up, it makes me feel like it's just going to be the worst day ever. And I can't get rid of that feeling. I can't shake it off. It's there. And it makes me feel like I'm about to have a heart attack. I think that's how I feel. I just can't breathe. I'm like anxious throughout the day. And the thing is, I really don't have any triggers, and it's like always there.
Yeah, like always in the background, this sense of
Yes,
almost panic attack like sensation.
yes, yes.
Yeah. So if this started after you had your daughter and it's been quite a few years since then, what do you think makes it worse? And when, if at all, do you feel like you don't feel that weight on your chest?
So I think it's definitely worse if there's something going on, right? If there are pending tasks, if the kids are screaming, I feel like that's when it's at its worst. I think when I'm doing self-care strategies or I have pre-planned my day, there's an agenda, there are things that I should be doing, and I'm well ahead in that, then I feel like I have some sort of grip on it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So your response to anxiety is to create more sense of agency in your day so that you're in control.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Do you think that responding to your anxiety by trying to be more in control has helped your anxiety, or it's still pretty much the same, or maybe it has even worsened?
You know, it can help sometimes, but now that you've asked that question, I think sometimes it also has the potential to trigger my anxiety. I also have these negative thoughts, and I feel like the more I entertain the negative thoughts, the more, anxious I get.
Is it mostly pertaining to your family or kids, the negative thoughts?
I want to say it's everything. It's work, it's home life, it's what's going on in the world. So if I'm on social media and I read something sad or bad, it also triggers my anxiety. So yeah, it could be anything.
Yeah. As you're talking, I'm feeling as if anxiety is like this living, breathing organism that has become your pet. That it's like always there with you, wants to follow
Yes.
you wherever you go. And there's not much separation between yourself and the anxiety.
No. And the thing is, I still am expected to function at work. I still have responsibilities at home. My children are little, right? So I just really don't have time to just sit down and let the anxiety take its course and then just wait until it's over. I just feel like I have to still get things done with that anxiety. So sometimes it's harder, but I'm also on pharmaceuticals for my anxiety. It's as needed basis. I'm not taking anything every day, but if I feel like I'm so crippled with the anxiety symptoms, I do take it. But again, I would like to have some sort of plan that's not totally like reliant on pharmaceuticals, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I can see that. It sounds as though you know what you need to do, which is to slow down and give space, but the demands of your life are so high that there's not much room to let the anxiety take its course, to use your words.
No, unfortunately not. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you've taken this time and I want to use it wisely. So, would you be open to doing a little exercise related to your anxiety?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. So if you can just close your eyes and see if you can plant your feet firmly on the floor or whatever piece of furniture you're on. And just take a long exhale, trying your best to loosen the grip of all the worries that your body is holding on to. Allow the breath to come back to you and then do the same thing. Long, deep exhale. Keep repeating this. Exhale out everything. Wait for the breath to come to you. Then exhale it out again. And as the breath starts to settle down, imagine feeling really grounded. Imagine there are roots growing from your feet straight into the ground, and you are totally anchored within your body, connected to the earth, stable, secure, grounded. From this place, I want you to see the part of you that is anxious as an image, any image that first comes to your mind. Could be a person, a thing, a symbol, a scene. And when you have one, you can share it with me.
I think the first image that came to my mind was when I was a child. So now it makes me wonder if I've always had anxiety and that's like the touchstone memory of when it started.
Mm-hmm. Stay with that image and describe it to me. How old are you? What are you wearing? What are you doing?
I think I'm about 3 years old. I think I'm wearing some sort of dress. Yeah, and I'm outside. I feel really little in my body. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's engage with this image for a little bit. So, from the perspective of this little girl, who is around, or what is around, and what is missing?
There's my father who's like bigger, like a lot bigger than me. So I see him in front of me and he's just yelling. So again, I feel really little, not just by stature, but also being in his presence and how he is like looking down and yelling at me.
That must be a very terrifying experience when you're that little.
Yes.
Who else is there, or what else is there?
That's all I see. I feel that the wind is blowing, but still hot outside. But I can't pinpoint where we're at. It just doesn't seem like a familiar environment.
Where do you suspect your mom is?
Somewhere else?
Were you able to summon her to this image?
I mean, I could, but we've all lived in horror of this man for like most of our lives. So even if I summon her, I don't think there's anything she can do to prevent the situation.
Yeah. In the beginning, you were describing your anxiety as this dread. And as you're describing this image to me, I sense a lot of dread of
Yes.
what's going to
Yes.
come from this person.
Mm-hmm.
And we're completely helpless in the face of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stay with that image some more. And I just want you to observe it. And if anything changes about it, just tell me.
It's weird that my daughter is about the same age, if not a little older than how I am in that image right now. And it makes me wonder if my anxiety is also making her feel small, or if there are things I'm doing while I'm anxious where she feels little like I did or I do right now when looking at that image.
How does it feel to think that she may be
It makes me,
experiencing you the way you experience your father?
well, it's heartbreaking. And also, right, I do not want to repeat the same cycle of abuse that I went through. And, and I want to grow up in an environment where she feels secured and not little and insignificant.
While you hold this image in awareness, maybe move it to the left of your visual field, and in the right of your field is your daughter. What do you think you would like to offer your daughter so she doesn't feel the way you're feeling?
Allow her a chance to maybe be on the same level as me, so she doesn't feel like I'm towering over her, and also allow her emotions to have a place and not feel insignificant.
Yeah. Would you be able to apply that wisdom to your own self?
I think I will be.
So what do you think the part of you that's still this child that represents your anxiety, that lives in dread, needs from you?
I think there's a lot of trauma that needs to be healed, right? That maybe I haven't taken into account. Maybe allowing that past trauma to be processed or at least acknowledged will allow me to not be anxious or as anxious, right?
Yeah, when you were talking about your daughter, you said that I would love to allow her room for her emotions and for her to take up space and not feel like, she's the small one in the situation.
And my husband and I, we do tell her all the time that she's allowed to be upset, she's allowed to be emotional, and she's also allowed to have bad days.
Mm-hmm.
So we do let her have that space where she doesn't have to, apologize to someone for having a bad day or having like tough emotions.
Mm-hmm. A little bit harder to apply that to yourself.
Yes.
Yeah, because when it comes to you, you want to be functional, and then that's what society has us think. But as you're seeing that the part of you that is driving the anxiety or represents the anxiety is looking for the space to express itself. I know you have a busy and full life, but what is the smallest way you think you can allow yourself the space that you're asking your daughter to take up emotionally?
I've always enjoyed working out. I just feel like after I'm working out, right, after I'm done, not during for sure, I feel the sense of accomplishment. I feel like I've made myself a priority. And for whatever reason, I haven't been able to have that time. And sometimes it's by choice. But I think I need to maybe come up with a self-care strategy that's doable in this stage of life. And if that means waking up half an hour early, I need to do that. But again, by the end of the day, I feel so overspent. I feel exhausted. So, I just tell myself it's okay to have that extra 30 minutes of sleep, but maybe I need to make that a priority again.
Yeah, I totally understand the sleep and physical fitness trade-off as a parent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do think it's a great place to start by nourishing your body. And also, hopefully, it'll cross over to your emotional state too. What is something that you could do directly and take space emotionally in your life without needing to wake up early or doing anything differently? Like in your life as is, how could you make more room for your emotions?
I think validating what I'm feeling, right? Because anxiety is a normal part of who we are. And so when I'm having a rough day, instead of pushing myself harder to function, just taking a little bit of time to acknowledge that I'm feeling anxious and that it's okay, that it's a normal emotion, and just, letting it take its course, I think is doable.
Yeah, that's a very simple and powerful realization. What you said there is to just be like, yes, it's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would suspect that if you did that you'd have less judgment toward this child that's within you. And you'd be able to, do for yourself what you're wanting your daughter to do as well.
Yes.
Is there anything this discussion is bringing up in you that you want to share?
when I felt like at times I had no triggers, but now doing this exercise with you, I feel like the trigger is a built-in thing. And every time, any sight or, like any senses that remind me of my childhood, I somehow like connect, or my anxiety is somehow connected to that. So I said there's no trigger, but I feel like there is a trigger and it's taking me to my childhood.
And it's so unconscious. Like until you
Yeah.
try to look at it, you don't know what goes on beneath the
Yeah.
surface. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There is this unconscious process that's going on where something happens. It doesn't even register in your mind as a trigger, but it makes you act in ways as that 3-year-old little girl. That girl needs, so much more sense of safety, the allowance to take up space physically, emotionally. And that's what I think your anxiety is asking of you.
Yes.
Hi everyone, welcome back. Thank you for listening to Cat's session. So let me turn to you, Jen, and ask you, did you find any parallels between what Cat was saying and your own experience with anxiety?
Oh, yeah, I could completely relate to Kat's experience all the way through, all the way through. I think one of the things that I really related to was she said, I thought anxiety was my drive. And it's like, wow. Yeah, I can really relate to that. Saying, like she was connecting it to like being type A and getting everything done. And I was thinking, oh yeah, I think that I was in that space as well. And it just really resonated with me because when I had anxiety as a mom, and for a long time, I didn't necessarily recognize all the ways that it was organizing my behavior and driving it.
And to some extent, I do think our society rewards anxiety because people who are anxious that need to do something about it, and then you do something about it, you get something more done, and then you're more productive, and so there is a level there. I think that's one of the reasons, like saying I'm feeling anxious is a lot more accepted in even non-therapeutic settings than saying anything else, because anxiety kind of shows that you have a lot going on, you're busy, you're being productive. And as much as I'm very happy that we can discuss anxiety as openly as we do nowadays as a society, we have also found a way to just condone it as part of our culture.
Yeah, right. It's that is kind of interesting that we do that, and it feels kind of cultural. And at the same time, like I remember I think too at one point she said that to create her schedule kind of gave her some control. And I do recall, like, in my experience, that it did seem to, when I would do that, it did seem like I was trying to use outside things to control what I was feeling on the inside. Yeah, so I thought that was interesting.
That is kind of the natural, and even in some sort of accepted response to anxiety. I remember I had recorded another one of those episodes, and someone was talking about their anxiety, and they said, action is the antidote to anxiety. Lying in bed, you're anxious, like, oh, how am I going to do this? You just like get up and then do the thing, and then you're like, okay, man, that's anxious. But that belief is very temporary, and you're always going to want to do something more because your anxiety is like one step ahead of you. Like, I get anxious, I do more. I get more anxious, I do even more. And it just like, it becomes like a never-ending cycle. To use Jung's terms, it becomes a complex in and of itself.
It does. It does. And I would also add, I was thinking about this too as she was sharing. It's like I can recall where the doing, get up and take action was actually distracting me from what I needed to do. It was to get present with what I was experiencing. So I was trying to do something to make that feeling go away, when really what I needed to do was sit with it to receive the message of what it was trying to help me with.
Yeah, we all do that.
Well, I loved what she said too, was that I don't have time to let the anxiety take its course. And really that's, I think, where the magic is to sit with it, to take the time.
What would you say to someone who says that I don't have time to be present with my anxiety?
Well, I realized I didn't have time to not be present because it becomes a ripple effect, right? So taking the time, even if it's, 10 minutes or 5 minutes or, sitting in a carpool lane, I remember as I was thinking back, it was like I had three sons that were going to three different schools, and taking the time in the carpool line to breathe was really pretty darn helpful. Like to turn off the noise, turn off the social media, turn off the radio. It's like just close your eyes and breathe, because you do have that sense that things are caving in on you. You know, there's an overwhelm sometimes when there's anxiety present. In my body anyway, that's how I felt.
I had a teacher, and just remember his words, and people would tell him that I don't have time to meditate. He said, if you don't have time to meditate, then you should meditate even longer. It's like, if you don't have 5 minutes in your day to meditate, then I do need to carve out 15 minutes to do it, or, you know, whatever, because you're that much more busy, like that much stress on your system, and you need to be that much more intentional with being present with your anxiety or anything for that matter.
Yeah, and you know, when I learned how to meditate, it was really profound, because it was as if like I was able to slow time down, and that was one of the things that I didn't feel like I had, but it felt like I was able to slow time down in order to be in it, you know, to really be present.
Back in my, you know, like one of my tech jobs, I used to lead like a weekly meditation cycle at work. And I remember I would always preface the practice by saying that if you think that meditation is just making your mind race, then no, you were racing the whole time. Meditation is just making you aware that that's what your mind is doing. Because some people would say that, oh, I can't meditate, my thoughts are all over the place. I'm like, that's happening all the time. Meditation is making you realize. And now that you're paying attention to them, just watch them, and they will slow down. And it is a practice, and you get better with it. And then you can even get to a point where I would see people like looking at the clock, be like, really? Like, it's not been 10 minutes yet? Because time can really slow down. So it's a very personal and subjective experience. And it's one of those things that's like not something you benefit from right away. Like, that's why it's called a practice, because you keep doing it. But if you get into it, you even 5 minutes of it, even 2 minutes of it, can be very life-changing, because for once you can take stock of your body, of your breath, which is a pretty good representation of our emotional state. Like, there is no emotion that can be present in our mind without a corresponding physical sensation in our body.
Yeah, you know, I think too, one of the things that I learned in meditation was when the thoughts came up, you know, that I didn't have to necessarily engage with all of them. Like, I didn't have to go down the rabbit hole of the thought that was coming in. And when I learned that, to discern between what was a thought that was, you know, helpful and what was a thought that wasn't helpful, you know, there was like a discernment. It was like I had thoughts that would come in and actually just distract me, and I would get into some kind of a loop. And to learn how to discern, you know, what's there, what's meaningful, and what's distracting was really helpful.
Were there any other practices that you tried besides meditation that you do now or even recommend to others?
Oh, yeah. So active imagination based practices. And so there are several that come along with Jungian work, and also a technique called regenerating images in memory, which is a trauma-informed active imagination-based methodology, which allows you to process, you know, deeper traumatic experiences if that's what's coming through for you. But also just like working with the symbols that show up, or symbols that I have in dreams, working with those in an active imagination experience has been really helpful. Also, like meeting the different parts of myself, you know, through active imagination has been a way to create a relationship with myself, so that I actually look forward to like slowing down and connecting with myself and getting to know myself and becoming self-aware. And, you know, I think too, it's like learning when triggers arise, right? Really, like even realizing, I think Kat mentioned in the session that she was like, oh, and I don't have any triggers, I just have this anxiety. And I think then later she learned that there was a trigger behind it, you know, and creating I always called triggers are our treasures, you know, because it's like there's something underneath that wants to be known. And if there's something in your shadow, or there's something that just emotionally wants to be expressed, it's like our triggers allow us to find that in active imagination based work, because it is a mind body experience. When you dip in, say your chest does feel really tight, it's like, well, let's dip in there and see what wants to show up. And if you slow down, magically you go a lot faster.
Yeah, slow down to go fast. And a good segue to the active imagination that happened in one session. You said you use a lot of active imagination in your own practice and with your clients. So what were your thoughts as she started doing her active imagination and saw that little girl, a 2-year-old girl, a version of herself?
I know, like, what a beautiful opportunity. You were holding space for her so that she could do that for herself. Yeah. The realizations that come through in active imagination. Our psyche speaks to us in imagery and metaphor and sensations. And it's like connecting the dots. When you make the unconscious conscious, then it stops running your life and you become at choice. And it sounds like Kat was choosing to be in relationship with her daughter differently. And that all came through her own experience. She realized all of that because she took the time to slow down.
Yeah, there's so much to be anxious about in motherhood that we all start with the resolve of like, I'm going to do this better than my childhood or how I grew up. And as 100% Jenny that resolve is, we still find ourselves doing exactly what we did as a child. And when we're stumped by it, like what just happened, despite best intentions, we end up doing things that we saw our parents doing. And I mean, I say this from my personal experience and my close friends I know or people I work with. And you get to a point where you're like, okay, I need to do something differently to break this cycle. But
right.
For you to get to that point, it's okay sometimes that it gets really bad. And I see moms especially are very guilt prone, and sometimes they're like, oh, I wish I'd done this work. But and Kat brings up that it was heartbreaking for her to think that she's doing to her girl what was done to her. But you almost need that, because then that becomes the reason to change and do things differently.
Right. I think a self-aware parent, a parent who is tuned into, what is happening underneath this and going in to discover what it is. It's like all these unprocessed emotions or traumas or experiences that people have. It does carry on to as a ripple effect to other generations or the circle of influence that you happen to be in. And if we're aware of it, I was thinking, imagine what it would be like, what the world would be like if we had the ability to process our emotions in a way that brought the messages in, and then we were able to apply those messages, which it sounds like, Kat is definitely doing. That's what came through in her session was to break the pattern.
We do that for ourselves, for everything that we were handed down, from what our parents can process, what their grandparents couldn't process. Like I, for one, come from a family where my grandparents were refugees during the India-Pakistan partition. So there is so much that I have realized through my own inner work that they had been holding on to, that they never metabolized, that I just inherited. And I have a lot, to work with. But it's been that much more powerful, the shift that you can make from your own experience to what you could pass on to your children. And I'm really glad that children can be such a motivator. And so I could see that Kat may not have noticed that there was anything wrong with her anxiety until it got in the way of her being the kind of parent she wanted to be. So children are really a gift. They are so much work, but they are such a gift when it comes to doing the work that we were meant to do all along.
Oh yeah, I would agree to that. And yeah, you were speaking about the generations that pass down. I have a mentor, Guru Singh, who said that it's 14 generations is in our bodies, and it is passed down from generation to generation. And I've seen, when clients come through to do that intergenerational work, I've seen it ripple out into the generations underneath, like the next generations. It's powerful work that is possible.
So I know you work with a lot of these types of concerns, or you work with a lot of people who are dealing with anxiety or panic attack. So if you were working with Kat, where would you go next from where she's at now or where she left the session at?
Gosh, I think she figured out what to do next. And it was the self-care practice, you know? And I think one of the things that we can all do as a self-care practice is to find the support to make the time, you know? And whether that's, you know, asking somebody to help out with the children so that you can go take health or, you know, self-care, whether that's exercise, meditation, yoga, whatever it is that works for you, you know, for that particular person. I think that's the most important thing too, because what brings you joy, what brings you the sense of peace and safety to resource yourself.
And I feel like sometimes when we are just normally brainstorming what we should do and we are not connected to the wisdom of our psyche, we would be like, okay, I have anxiety. I know I need self-care, like theoretically, but we can't really make room for it because it just all feels like it's just not going to happen. But when a realization comes in active imagination, it's not simply intellectual. It is the sense of inner knowing that feels like that is what I need to do. And I've noticed that then it makes it easier to make shifts in the way. Yeah, the motivation capacity to make change after active imagination, I find it's just like unparalleled compared to like a simple problem solving approach to our issues.
I agree 100%. Physical fitness, of course, has its value. And I call it emotional fitness. And emotional fitness in that umbrella is meditation, active imagination, and somatic, you know, yoga work and that sort of thing. It is different. You know, it's like you've got the mind, you've got the body, and you have the spirit. And you've got to manage and balance all of them. It's a practice. It's a practice.
Definitely noticed that there are times when, like, I used to dance as a very serious hobby, and I would have weeks when I would get a lot done when it comes to my body, or I would be in yoga teacher training or teaching, and then I'm doing a lot of breath work and other practices, and then there's more self-care like journaling or doing active imagination. And even if one of them goes away for too long, you start to feel like a three-legged stool, and like one of the legs is just missing. You feel a little wobbly.
You get wobbly, that's right.
Yeah, so in the session too, I was trying to tell Kat, like, yes, that's probably an area where your body is lost, and to make space for your emotional side too. Like, that's going to be great, but in and of itself, it's not going to be enough because there are sheets in our body. We have layers to ourselves. We have the gross body, we have the subtle body, you know, we have the spirit body, and they all need to be nurtured, all need to be connected.
Yeah. They do. Yeah. It is like a wobbly chair. There's something missing and then it gets wobbly and then it's like, oh, there's feedback here. What do I need to, where do I need to find a little more self-care? In what area? And yeah, and I would say pranayama, just to do breath work, is so significant in the body. It brings so much energy and so much like prana, you know, life force into the body. It's a perspective changer. It's a cellular changer. It's powerful. Yeah. Combined with active imagination, I'll say is even more powerful.
Totally. So for Kat and for anyone listening to this, if you are trying to address your anxiety or anything that you're dealing with at only the level of the body or only the mind, only the soul, which I will say, you know, just sitting and doing affirmations is also not enough sometimes, because just try to take a more holistic approach and see how you can tend to yourself in more than one way. And that's not to like bombard your day with like a ton of practices. You can even rotate through them. You know, on my rest days now when I'm not working out and I have more time to do journal, for instance. But to tell yourself that I go to the gym and that's going to be enough, or I go to therapy, or I work on this type of self-care. Like, we really need an all-rounded approach to feeling grounded in our body.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, it's important.
Anything else that you want to say about this session before we wrap up?
Yeah, what a powerful session. And, you know, just the realization that you can take 10 or 15 minutes to slow down, receive the message, and then apply the message. It's like you take the time, you allow the message to come through, you allow the emotions to move. It gives you the power to choose what's next.
That's a very nice, simple takeaway.
Breathe, listen, and trust.
Well, thank you, Jen, for discussing this with me. It's such a pleasure to have you. I hope that for everyone who listened today, that you really benefited from what you heard. And thanks again to Kat for sharing her story. That's all we have for this week's episode of Confronting Sublime. Thank you, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you for being my partner in Sublime today. I hope you enjoyed diving into the unconscious with me. To ask a question or get coached on the show, visit shagunchopra.com/ask or click the link below. See you next time.